Kale's small ship hummed softly as it drifted through the Andromeda expanse. He had been exploring these uncharted regions for weeks. Relying on his instincts and a mix of luck and skill, the stars stretched endlessly around him, their light glinting off the polished metal of his ship's hull. It was beautiful, yet lonely. Exploration was a solitary business, and Kale had grown used to the silence of space, punctuated only by the soft beeping of his ship's instruments. The sudden flash of light caught him off guard. A shimmering energy storm appeared on his radar, moving faster than anything Kale had ever seen. He cursed under his breath as he tried to maneuver his ship. But the storm's pull was relentless. The controls trembled under his fingers, alarms blaring as the energy surged around him. His heart pounded. Not just from fear, but from the thrill of the unknown. He had faced dangers before, but nothing quite like this. Desperate, Kale activated the emergency landing protocols. The storm seemed to follow him, pushing him toward the surface of a planet that appeared suddenly below him. As he descended, the storm's energy swirled around the ship, making the controls twitch and jerk. Finally, with a shuddering bump and a hiss of hydraulics, the ship touched down on the planet's surface. Kale exhaled, leaning back in his seat, feeling the tension drain from his shoulders. The planet below him was unlike any he had ever seen. Lush forests glowed with bioluminescent plants. Rivers shimmered with colors that shifted like liquid rainbows, and floating islands drifted lazily above the surface. It was as if the entire world had been painted from the dreams of someone who had never seen Earth. Cautiously, Kale stepped out of his ship. The air was warm and sweet, carrying a scent he could not name. Each step on the soft, glowing grass felt surreal, like walking through a dream. He adjusted his gear and took out his scanner, hoping to gather information about the planet and its atmosphere. Everything read normal. Life signs, however, were abundant. He could sense them in the vibrations of the ground, in the rustle of plants, as small creatures moved unseen. As he wandered further, he noticed shapes moving among the trees. At first, he thought they were animals, but the shapes resolved into tall, graceful figures with smooth, shimmering skin that reflected the soft light of the floating islands above. Kale froze. They were intelligent beings, and they were watching him. His first instinct was caution. History had taught him that unknown, intelligent species could be dangerous. But something about the beings' calm presence reassured him. They didn't approach aggressively. One figure, taller than the others and adorned with flowing garments that seemed to move like liquid, stepped forward. Her eyes sparkled like twin stars, full of curiosity and intelligence. Kale's heart skipped a beat. He had read about alien royalty in the old exploration archives, stories of beings who carried themselves with dignity and command. Could this be one of them? "Welcome, traveler," the figure said, her voice melodic and soothing. It carried a weight of authority, yet it was warm, not commanding. "I am Lyra, Princess of Xyrithia. You have arrived at an unexpected time, but the universe often moves in unexpected ways." Quote. Kale swallowed hard, trying to steady his voice. I'm Kale, a human explorer. I didn't mean to land here. There was a storm, and my ship, it brought me down." Lyra smiled gently, a mixture of amusement and curiosity lighting her features. "The storm has guided you to us. Perhaps it is no accident. You have courage to survive its pull." She gestured toward the glowing forest. "Come. You are welcome in the palace. But first, we must understand the circumstances that brought you here." Kale followed, marveling at the scenery around him. The forest seemed alive in ways he had never imagined. Trees bent gently as they floated above the ground, their roots twirling in the air like dancers. Flowers opened and closed rhythmically, almost as if they were breathing. Small creatures with transparent wings hovered nearby, their movements precise and playful. Kale felt a thrill of excitement. He had come seeking exploration, and this world promised discoveries beyond his wildest dreams. They arrived at a clearing where a small vehicle awaited. Lyra moved with grace as she gestured for Kale to enter. He hesitated for a moment, aware of the alien eyes watching him, but her smile reassured him. The vehicle lifted into the air, gliding smoothly along invisible currents, carrying them toward a palace that floated among the clouds like a jewel suspended in the sky. As they approached, Kale's breath caught. The palace was unlike anything he had seen. Towers of crystal spiraled upward, catching the light of Xerithia's twin suns. Bridges of glowing energy arched between the towers, and fountains sent streams of liquid light into the air. The inhabitants moved through the palace with ease, floating from platform to platform, their laughter echoing softly like wind chimes. Kale's nervousness returned as they entered the main hall. The room was filled with beings like Lyra, all observing him with curiosity and cautious interest. He realized he was the first human any of them had ever seen. The thought was exhilarating and terrifying. Lyra led him to a balcony overlooking the palace gardens, where rivers of light wound through trees and flowers bloomed in impossible patterns. You must understand, Kale, that here, even accidents can be extraordinary, she said softly. Sometimes, what seems like a mistake brings the greatest joy. Kale blinked. He had no idea what she meant, but her words carried a weight that made him pause. Before he could ask, Lyra handed him a small, intricate device. This is an energy calibrator, she explained. It is used for the care of certain plants that respond to life energy. Humans have a unique energy signature. Perhaps your presence can help. Kale took the device carefully, trying to mimic her movements. He followed her instructions, placing the calibrator near a cluster of glowing plants. Nothing happened at first, but then the plants began to pulse gently, responding to his presence. Kale's eyes widened. It's working? Lyra laughed, a sound like wind through crystal. Yes. The plants recognize the harmony of your energy. You have a gift, Kale. Though you do not yet know it. He laughed nervously, but the sound was genuine. I don't even know what I'm doing half the time. That is often the best way to discover joy, Lyra replied, her eyes sparkling. Curiosity without fear leads to the most wonderful experiences. As the day passed, Kale explored the palace with Lyra, learning about Xerithia's culture, its technology, and its people. Every corner of the floating gardens revealed something new. Trees that communicated with light patterns, fountains that sang in harmony with the wind, and creatures that seemed to understand laughter. Kale felt a connection to this world unlike anything he had experienced in his travels. In a quiet moment, Lyra turned to him. Your arrival has caused quite a stir. The court believes your presence signifies a bond, though it is accidental. It is said to bring happiness and prosperity. Kale froze. A bond, Lyra nodded, smiling warmly. In Xerithia, bonds are sacred. They symbolize the potential for joy and growth, the nurturing of life and happiness. Your arrival, it has sparked hope. Kale felt a mixture of confusion and amusement. He had not intended to do anything except survive a storm. Yet here he was, already playing a part in something far larger than himself. He realized that sometimes, life's most unexpected moments brought the greatest adventures. As the twin suns began to set, casting a kaleidoscope of colors across the floating gardens, Kale stood beside Lyra on the balcony. He watched the light dance across the palace, feeling a sense of wonder and belonging he had never known. Lyra's presence was comforting, her laughter infectious, and her curiosity inspiring. He could not have predicted this moment, yet he would not trade it for anything. The night came, and the palace shimmered under the starlight. Kale knew that his journey had only just begun. Xerithia was a world of surprises, and Princess Lyra was a guide unlike any he had ever met. As he gazed at the glowing forests below, he understood that adventure was not just about exploration. It was about connection, laughter, and discovering joy in the most unexpected places. For the first time in a long while, Kale felt truly alive, and as he looked at Lyra, smiling warmly beside him, he knew that whatever the future held, it would be extraordinary. Kale awoke to the soft hum of the palace around him. The walls shimmered with gentle colors, changing with the morning light. He stretched and looked around. still amazed that he was really here. On a planet so different from any human world, yesterday's events felt like a dream, yet every detail was vivid in his mind. He stepped out onto the balcony, where the twin suns were rising over the floating gardens. The colors of the plants glowed more brightly in the morning light, and the small creatures that moved among them seemed even more playful than before. Kale took a deep breath of the sweet, warm air. He had never felt so alive. Lyra appeared beside him, smiling. "Good morning, Kale. Sleep well?" she asked. Her voice carried the same calm confidence that had fascinated him yesterday. "As well as I could," Kale replied, still a bit embarrassed by how clumsy he had felt yesterday with the energy calibrator and the plants. "This place, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. I don't even know where to start." "These," Lyra laughed softly. "Start with curiosity. That is all you need." She motioned toward a floating platform that extended over a shimmering waterfall. "Today, you will meet the council. They wish to understand more about you and your presence here." Kale felt a nervous flutter in his stomach. Meeting the council sounded important and serious. He straightened his posture, trying to look confident, though he had no idea what to expect. The council chamber floated above the gardens, with platforms linked by glowing bridges. As Kale and Lyra entered, he noticed beings of all shapes and sizes, each with skin that reflected light in unique ways. Some had long, flowing limbs. Others moved with elegance and precision. All eyes turned toward Kale. Curious, yet calm, Lyra introduced him to each member, explaining their roles in the kingdom. Kale tried to remember their names and titles, but it was difficult. The council seemed both formal and friendly, welcoming him as a guest rather than a stranger. He realized that the Xerians were not only intelligent but also genuinely interested in understanding others. "The council has learned of your arrival," Lyra said gently, turning to Kale, "and they are curious. In Xyrithia, your presence suggests a bond, though it was accidental. This bond is considered a symbol of happiness and nurturing." Kale blinked. "A bond?" he repeated, unsure how to respond. "Yes," Lyra said. "It is not binding in the way you might imagine. Rather, it represents connection, growth, and shared joy. Your actions yesterday, though unintentional, were interpreted as the beginning of this bond." Kale felt a mixture of amusement and anxiety. He had not intended anything. He had simply survived a storm and wandered through glowing gardens. Yet here he was, seen as a symbol of happiness for an entire planet. The council invited him to participate in a ceremonial greeting, which Kale discovered involved moving through the palace gardens while interacting with the plants and creatures. It was designed to demonstrate harmony with the world and its life forms. Kale followed the instructions carefully, though his human awkwardness made for a few amusing missteps. One moment, he accidentally startled a group of floating orbs that danced among the flowers, causing them to spin rapidly and create a cascade of sparkling light. The council members laughed softly, not in mockery, but in delight at his genuine effort. Lyra chuckled beside him, reaching out to steady one of the orbs with a gentle touch. "You have a way of bringing joy without trying," she said, her eyes twinkling. "That is a rare gift." Kale scratched his head, embarrassed but secretly pleased. "I'm glad it's helpful," he said, smiling. "Though I can't say I planned any of it." Lyra shook her head, still smiling. "Some of the best things are unplanned." After the ceremony, Lyra suggested they explore the floating gardens more deeply. Kale followed, marveling at how the plants responded to his presence. Some bent gracefully toward him, others emitted soft glows, and a few small creatures approached, curious about the human who had come from the stars. They reached a part of the gardens that Kale had not seen before, a maze of glowing vines and luminous flowers. Lyra handed him a small tool, explaining that it could gently interact with the flora, helping them grow or bloom. Kale hesitated, then followed her instructions, adjusting to the delicate touch required. The maze became a playful challenge, each turn revealing new wonders. They encountered a pool of liquid light, where tiny creatures leaped gracefully from one glowing lily to another. Kale laughed as he tried to mimic their movements, carefully stepping from lily to lily without falling. Lyra joined him, her laughter like music blending with his. As they reached the center of the maze, they discovered a cluster of rare plants that emitted a soft, melodic hum. Lyra explained that these plants responded to emotions, amplifying feelings of joy and curiosity. Kale placed the tool near them and followed her guidance. To his amazement, the plants pulsed in harmony with his heartbeat, creating a radiant glow that lit the entire maze. Lyra watched with delight. "See? You have a gift for connection. You do not even need to try. Your presence brings happiness." Kale felt a warmth in his chest, a feeling of pride mixed with awe. He had never imagined that simply being himself could have such an impact. I'm glad," he said quietly, feeling humbled. Lyra leaned closer, her eyes bright. "The people of Zerithia will benefit greatly from your presence, Kale. Even if it was an accident, the bond you represent will inspire others to embrace joy and curiosity." They spent hours exploring the maze, laughing, and discovering hidden wonders. Kale realized that time moved differently here. Hours felt like moments, and the world seemed alive in every detail. The floating islands above shifted slowly, casting soft shadows that danced across the glowing flora. Birds with transparent wings flew gracefully, and small, playful creatures mirrored Kale's movements, adding to the sense of whimsy. As evening approached, Lyra led him to a platform overlooking a waterfall that cascaded into a glowing river. The water sparkled like liquid starlight, reflecting the colors of the twin suns as they dipped below the horizon. Kale felt a profound sense of peace. He had traveled far from Earth, facing storms and uncertainties, and yet he had found something he could not have anticipated, a connection that transcended worlds. Lyra sat beside him, her gaze fixed on the river. "You have already begun to change this place, Kale," she said softly. "Your presence reminds us that happiness can come from the most unexpected sources. It encourages curiosity and joy, and it inspires others to explore the unknown with an open heart." Kale looked at her, understanding the truth in her words. He had not meant to become a symbol. Yet here he was, part of something greater than himself. I never expected any of this," he admitted. "I just wanted to survive the storm." "And yet, you did more than survive," Lyra replied, smiling. "You brought life and laughter into our world. That is a gift greater than you realize." They sat together in companionable silence, watching the river glow and shimmer. Kale felt a deep sense of belonging, a feeling that he had not known in his long travels. He realized that adventure was not just about exploring new worlds, but about forming connections and sharing joy with those he met. As night fell, the palace lights began to glow softly, illuminating the floating gardens below. Kale knew that his journey was only beginning. There would be challenges, misunderstandings, and surprises. But he also knew that he had found a friend and guide in Lyra. Together, they could navigate the wonders of Zerithia, uncovering its secrets and spreading happiness in ways neither of them could have imagined. Kale's thoughts drifted to the council and the idea of the bond. It was accidental, yes, but it had meaning beyond his understanding. He realized that sometimes the universe placed people exactly where they were needed, even if it was unexpected. Perhaps this bond, however accidental, was an opportunity, a chance to bring light and joy to a world that had welcomed him so warmly. Lyra turned to him, her eyes filled with warmth and mischief. "Tomorrow, we will explore the crystal caverns. They are alive in ways even the gardens cannot match. You must be ready for surprises, Kale." Kale laughed, feeling a thrill of anticipation. "I think I'm ready," he said. "Though with you, I never know what to expect." "That is the joy of it," Lyra replied. "Life is full of unexpected moments, and they often bring the greatest happiness." Kale nodded, feeling a sense of excitement he had not felt in years. He had come to Zerithia by accident, caught in a storm, and yet he had found adventure, friendship, and a sense of purpose. The accidental bond might have been unintended, but it had created something wonderful, a connection that would grow stronger with each day, bringing laughter, learning, and joy to both of them and to the people of this extraordinary planet. As he lay down that night, Cale thought about the floating gardens, the glowing river, and the laughter of Lyra. He realized that sometimes the best adventures were those that no one planned, and in this moment, he understood that he was exactly where he was meant to be. The morning sun rose slowly over the floating gardens, casting long beams of golden light across the shimmering leaves and glowing flowers. Cale stretched and rubbed his eyes, feeling more awake than he had in weeks. Xyrithia was alive in a way no human world had ever been. Every step he took seemed to make the plants respond, and even the air itself seemed to hum with energy. He smiled, realizing that his life had changed in ways he had never imagined. Lyra appeared at the doorway, her flowing garments catching the sunlight. She moved with her usual grace, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Good morning, Cale. Today we explore the crystal caverns," she said. "They are alive with light and sound, and the caverns have a personality of their own. You must be ready for surprises." Cale laughed nervously, though he was curious. "I'm ready. I think. I've never seen a cave that has a personality before." Lyra smiled knowingly. "You will see. Xyrithia is full of wonders. Sometimes the most ordinary places hold extraordinary surprises." They boarded a small floating platform that glided silently through the gardens, heading toward the caverns. Along the way, Cale noticed more of the magical aspects of the palace grounds. Birds with translucent wings darted through beams of light, and tiny creatures hopped from plant to plant, seemingly playing games with one another. Cale reached out to one of the creatures, and it landed delicately on his hand, chirping softly. He laughed, amazed by the gentle trust these beings had in him. When they arrived at the entrance to the crystal caverns, Cale was awestruck. Towering crystals of every color jutted from the ground and walls, reflecting light in dazzling patterns. The crystals emitted soft musical tones, creating a symphony that filled the vast chamber. The air was cool and clean, carrying a faint scent of sparkling minerals. Cale felt a sense of wonder that made him forget all the dangers of space he had faced before. Lyra held out her hand. "Follow me closely, Cale. The caverns respond to emotions. If you are curious and happy, the crystals will guide you. If you are fearful or uncertain, they may confuse you. Let joy lead the way." Cale nodded, trying to steady his excitement. He stepped carefully, following Lyra as the light and sound shifted around them. The crystals pulsed gently, reacting to their movements and laughter. At one point, Cale tripped over a small, protruding crystal, and Lyra reached out to steady him. He stumbled into her arms, and they both laughed. "You are clumsy, Cale," Lyra teased, her eyes twinkling. "But you bring life to these places. The crystals enjoy your presence." Cale grinned sheepishly. "I suppose they do. I just hope I don't break anything." "Do not worry," Lyra said. "Here, curiosity is more valuable than caution." They continued deeper into the caverns, discovering pools of liquid crystal that reflected their faces in rippling, colorful patterns. Cale was fascinated by how each movement, each laugh, each thought seemed to affect the environment. It was as if the world itself was alive, responding to them personally. As they explored, they encountered a small group of young Xyrians who were practicing crystal music. Each Xyrian touched the crystals in precise patterns, producing harmonious tones that filled the cavern. Cale tried to mimic them, pressing crystals gently and laughing when his attempts created strange, playful notes. Lyra guided him, and soon the sounds blended into a joyful melody. "This is incredible," Cale said, his eyes shining. "It's like the whole cave is alive." Lyra nodded. "The caverns have always responded to the emotions of those who enter. Your bond, accidental as it was, has brought harmony. The crystals sing with you." Cale felt a warmth in his chest. It was strange to think that by being himself, by simply being present, he could affect a whole world. He had traveled galaxies, faced storms, and explored countless planets. Yet none had made him feel so connected. As they moved further, They came to a chamber where crystals grew in spiraling towers, reaching toward a glowing ceiling. At the center was a large pool of liquid light. Lyra gestured for Kale to approach. This is the heart of the cavern. It responds to happiness and curiosity. Place your hand near the surface and let your energy flow. Kale hesitated for a moment, then held his hand above the glowing liquid. To his amazement, the pool rippled and shimmered, sending beams of light into the cavern. The crystals around them pulsed in perfect harmony, creating a dazzling display of colors and sound. Lyra joined him, placing her hand beside his. Together, their laughter and energy amplified the effects, turning the chamber into a radiant celebration of light. Kale felt a sense of unity with Lyra and the world around them. The accidental bond that had begun in the palace now seemed to extend to the very planet itself. It was a bond of joy, curiosity, and mutual respect, and it was stronger than he could have imagined. After spending hours in the caverns, Kale and Lyra returned to the floating gardens as the twin suns began to set. The gardens glowed under the evening light, and the small creatures played among the flowers. Kale felt a sense of peace, knowing that he was becoming part of something beautiful. Lyra led him to a quiet platform overlooking a river of glowing water. "The people of Zyrithia are inspired by your presence," she said softly. "Even small actions, like your laughter and curiosity, have encouraged others to explore and create joy in ways they had never imagined." Kale looked at her, amazed. "I never thought that just being here could make a difference. I came because of a storm, and now I feel like I belong." "You do belong," Lyra replied. "Sometimes, the universe places people exactly where they are needed. Your accidental bond has created ripples of happiness, and those ripples will continue to grow." They spent the evening talking about their worlds, sharing stories and laughter. Kale told Lyra about Earth, about humans' love for exploration, and the many mistakes that often led to great discoveries. Lyra shared tales of Zyrithia, its history, and the customs of her people. They discovered that despite their differences, they shared a love for learning and curiosity. As night fell, the palace lights reflected in the river, creating a scene of magical tranquility. Kale realized that this planet, this palace, and this friendship were gifts he could not have planned. He had entered Zyrithia by accident, caught in a storm, yet he had found something more valuable than any treasure: connection, joy, and a sense of purpose. The next morning, Kale awoke to find Lyra waiting with a mischievous smile. "Today, we have a special celebration," she said. "The court wishes to honor the joy you bring. It is called the Festival of Light, a celebration of happiness, curiosity, and unexpected bonds." Kale raised an eyebrow. "A festival for me?" Lyra laughed softly. "For the happiness you represent, your presence, though accidental, has brought laughter and inspiration to everyone here." The festival was unlike anything Kale had ever experienced. The palace gardens were decorated with floating lanterns that glowed with soft, warm light. Music filled the air, created by both the crystals and the citizens of Zyrithia. There were games, dances, and displays of creativity, all inspired by the energy and curiosity of the visitors and the planet itself. Kale participated eagerly, though his human awkwardness led to several humorous situations. He accidentally tripped over a glowing vine, causing a cascade of small lights to float into the air. Children of Zyrithia giggled and helped him gather them, turning the accident into a playful game. Lyra joined in, laughing and guiding him gently. Throughout the festival, Kale noticed how the citizens of Zyrithia interacted with one another. They laughed freely, explored boldly, and supported each other's efforts. The accidental bond he represented seemed to have given them permission to embrace joy and curiosity without fear. He realized that happiness was contagious, and even small actions could inspire a whole society. As the festival reached its peak, Kale and Lyra stood together on a platform above the gardens. Lanterns floated around them, casting soft, radiant light. Lyra looked at him with a warm smile. "See what your presence has done? You have brought life and laughter to our world. You have inspired joy." Kale felt a sense of pride mixed with humility. "I didn't mean to," he admitted. "It was all an accident. But seeing everyone happy, it feels amazing." Lyra nodded. "Sometimes, the best things are accidents. They remind us that life is full of surprises, and joy can come from the most unexpected places." Kale smiled, feeling a deep connection to her, the people, and the planet itself. He realized that he had found not just a home in Zyrithia, but a purpose. The accidental bond had created something extraordinary. A link between human curiosity and Zyrian happiness. A bridge of laughter, exploration, and wonder. As the festival continued into the night, Kyle and Lyra laughed, danced, and explored alongside the citizens of Zyrithia. The glow of lanterns reflected in their eyes, and the hum of crystals and music filled the air. Kyle understood that adventure was not just about discovering new worlds. It was about creating joy, connecting with others, and embracing the unexpected. For the first time in his life, Kale felt truly part of something greater. He had come to Zyrithia by accident, yet he had found laughter, friendship, and a sense of belonging that would stay with him forever. And as he looked at Lyra, smiling brightly beside him, he knew that the best adventures were not the ones planned in advance. They were the ones that happened by chance, guided by curiosity, laughter, and the bonds we create along the way. The morning sun rose over Zyrithia, casting soft beams of light across the floating gardens and glowing rivers. Kyle woke with a sense of anticipation. Today was not just another day of exploration. It was a day of celebration for the accidental bond he had unknowingly formed with Princess Lyra. It was a bond that had inspired the people, encouraged joy, and brought a new spirit to the planet. Lyra was already waiting for him at the balcony. She looked radiant, her hair shimmering in the morning light. "Good morning, Kale," she said with her usual warmth. "Today, the Festival of Harmony will show how your presence has touched Zyrithia. You will see what happens when joy spreads through a world." Kale felt a nervous excitement. He had grown used to the attention his presence had created, but he still found it surprising that simply being himself had such an impact. "I'm ready," he said, trying to sound confident, "though I still can't believe all this is because of me." Lyra laughed softly. "You underestimate the power of kindness and curiosity. Even small actions can create waves of happiness." They walked through the palace grounds, where preparations for the festival were already underway. The floating gardens were decorated with colorful lanterns. Musical plants were arranged in patterns that glowed like stars, and small creatures scurried about, helping wherever they could. Citizens of Zyrithia worked together, their laughter filling the air, a living symphony of joy. The first part of the festival involved the citizens showcasing creations inspired by the bond Kale represented. There were glowing sculptures, musical performances, and intricate patterns made with bioluminescent plants. Kale watched in awe as the creations reflected both human curiosity and Zyrian creativity. The influence of his presence, though accidental, had sparked imagination in everyone. Lyra led Kale to a central platform, where the citizens had gathered. "Today, you will see the true power of happiness," she said. "It is not just about joy. It is about connection, understanding, and inspiration. Your presence has reminded us that even the smallest actions can make a difference." Kale felt a mixture of pride and humility. He had not intended to create such impact, yet here he was, witnessing it unfold before his eyes. The citizens cheered as he stepped forward, acknowledging the bond that had formed naturally between him and the princess. As the day progressed, Kyle and Lyra guided the citizens through games and activities that encouraged exploration and laughter. They floated across platforms, raced through mazes of glowing vines, and interacted with musical plants that responded to their energy. Kale's human quirks created moments of humor and delight, making even the most cautious participants laugh freely. One of the highlights of the festival was the River of Light. The river flowed with liquid energy, reflecting the emotions of those nearby. Kale and Lyra stepped onto a floating platform above the river, and the liquid shimmered and pulsed with their laughter and joy. As they moved, the river sent beams of light that painted patterns across the gardens. Citizens followed, creating a dance of color and movement that filled the entire palace grounds. Kale realized that the festival was more than a celebration. It was a demonstration of how one connection could influence an entire society. The accidental bond he had shared with Lyra had created ripples that encouraged creativity, joy, and cooperation. Even the most reserved citizens now participated, smiling and laughing, inspired by the example set by Kale and Lyra. After the River of Light celebration, Kale and Lyra retreated to a quieter area of the gardens, where floating lanterns drifted lazily in the air. The day had been long and filled with excitement, but it had also been deeply meaningful. Kale looked at Lyra, feeling a sense of gratitude. "You've changed this world," he said quietly. "Even if I didn't mean to, I've had an impact I never imagined." Lyra smiled warmly. "No, Kale. You have reminded us all of something important. That joy, curiosity, and kindness are powerful forces. You have shown us that even accidents can create happiness, and that is a gift beyond measure." Kale felt a surge of emotion. He had traveled across galaxies seeking adventure, yet he had found something far more valuable: a sense of purpose, a home, and a friendship that would last a lifetime. As the evening approached, the Festival of Harmony reached its climax. Citizens gathered on platforms, bridges, and floating islands, creating a spectacle of light and music. Kyle and Lyra stood together at the center, their hands close but not touching, sharing a silent understanding. The accidental bond had grown into a symbol of hope, joy, and curiosity. Kale noticed the way the citizens looked at him, not with awe alone, but with genuine appreciation. Their smiles, laughter, and creativity reflected the lessons he had unintentionally taught them. That exploration, kindness, and joy were worth embracing. He felt humbled by the trust and admiration they showed. Lyra turned to him, her eyes shining in the glow of the lanterns. "Kale, do you see now?" she asked. "Your presence has brought happiness not just to me, but to everyone here. You have reminded us that life is brighter when we embrace the unexpected and share our joy." Kale nodded, feeling a warmth that went beyond pride. "I see it," he said softly, "and I've learned something too. Happiness is not just about what we plan, but what we allow to happen, what we share with others." As the festival continued, Kale and Lyra guided citizens in creating a new tradition. Each year, they would celebrate the unexpected, the joyful, and the curious. It was a festival that honored connections, laughter, and creativity, inspired by the bond that had begun by chance. Later, Kale explored the gardens with Lyra, noticing how the plants seemed to respond even more strongly to the happiness around them. Crystals shimmered in patterns that mirrored laughter. Rivers pulsed with light that reflected joy, and creatures danced through the air, celebrating life itself. Kale realized that he had become part of a living, breathing world where emotions and curiosity shaped reality. Lyra paused by a pool of liquid light and gestured for Kale to look. "This pool shows the energy of happiness," she said. "Watch what happens when you share joy freely." Kale stepped closer, and the liquid shimmered, sending beams of rainbow light into the gardens. Citizens followed, adding their own energy, and the effect multiplied, creating a spectacle of brilliance. Kale laughed, feeling a sense of fulfillment unlike anything he had known. The bond he had thought accidental had become intentional in its consequences. It had brought a community together, inspired creativity, and created memories that would last for generations. As night fell, the palace and gardens glowed under the light of the twin moons. Kale and Lyra stood on a high platform, looking out over the floating islands. The river of light reflected the stars, and the lanterns drifted lazily above the gardens, carrying wishes, laughter, and joy into the night. Lyra turned to Kale, her expression serene. You have found more than adventure here, Kale. You have found connection, understanding, and joy. That is the greatest discovery of all. Kale smiled, feeling a sense of peace. I never expected to find this, he admitted. I thought I was just surviving a storm, exploring a new world, but I've gained something far more valuable. And we are grateful for it, Lyra said softly. You have reminded us of the beauty and curiosity, the power of joy, and the importance of sharing both with others. That is a gift no one can take away. The night air was filled with the soft sounds of music, laughter, and the gentle hum of crystals. Kale realized that this world, this planet, and this bond were part of something extraordinary. He had come by accident, yet he had found purpose, friendship, and a sense of belonging that he would carry with him forever. As they walked through the glowing gardens, Kale felt a profound sense of gratitude. The accidental bond that had begun in a single moment of misunderstanding had blossomed into a force of happiness, inspiration, and connection. He understood now that life's greatest adventures were often unplanned, and the joy created through connection could ripple outward, touching countless lives. Lyra stopped beside him and gestured toward the palace. Come, Kale. There is one final part of the festival I want to share with you. They entered a chamber filled with floating lanterns, each containing a glowing orb of light. Lyra explained that these lanterns represented hopes and happiness, sent out into the universe to inspire others. Kale released a lantern, watching as it floated upward, joining countless others in a dance of light. The sight filled him with wonder and peace. He had come to Zyrithia by accident, but he had left a mark that would endure, a symbol of joy, curiosity, and the beauty of embracing the unexpected. Lyra released her lantern next to his, and they watched together as the lights rose, filling the sky with a constellation of hope. This is what your presence has brought, Kale, she said softly. Light, happiness, and inspiration that will spread beyond this world. Kale smiled, feeling a sense of completion. He had not planned to be part of this story, yet he had become a central figure in something far greater than himself. He realized that life's true value lay in connections, laughter, and shared joy, and he was grateful for every moment he had spent on Z.